The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, AP Valentine. Our guest today is Guruduth Banavar. Guru is the founding CTO, head of discovery AI, and co-lead in clinical research at Viome. Guru, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, JP. I'm really excited to be on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. I know we've been talking about doing this together for a while, so I'm delighted we're finally here. So, Guru, we've got a lot to talk about because Viome is an amazing company. But let's just start with yourself. For everyone listening, can you give us a little bit of an overview of your journey in technology from where you got started to what's led you to where you're at today?
Yeah, listen, I have been a computer geek from my high school days. One of the first people back in India who got their hands on a small personal computer that kind of took me into the computational sort of field in the late 80s. And then the internet was born, and then I got into more of the internet distributed computing stuff. And then I was lucky enough to be hired into one of the premier research organizations on the planet, which is IBM Research, where I made my way into a lot of very interesting projects. And for the last maybe 15 years or 20 years almost, I've done a lot of AI and data projects. And some of the interesting projects I did during my IBM tenure was at the Watson Research Group, which I was the first founding vice president of in IBM Research. And we did a lot of really great projects. You probably heard about the Jeopardy AI project, but after that, we did a number of, I would call them grand challenge type projects, a debater, a machine that can debate a human, lots of oncology, cancer projects, and a number of other industries, financial services and industrial engineering and what have you. And then I had a once in a lifetime opportunity to become part of the founding team of this company that I'm working for now called Viome. And I think of that as a once in a lifetime opportunity because I really view the biggest problem of the 21st century to be that of chronic disease. Every, other person on the planet has some kind of chronic disease. And I think it's super important for us to get to the bottom of it and figure out what is going on to the whole of humanity. And we have to understand the biology, we have to understand the environment in which we all live in, our lifestyles and what have you. And my dream has always been to apply deep science and deep technology innovations to solve these kinds of big challenges for humanity. And so I jumped at this problem with a bunch of really great co-founders, and we have built a business, which we'll talk a lot more about later, but I would call it the pinnacle or the convergence of all of the other things I've been doing before to solve what I consider to be one of the most important problems for humanity right now.
Thank you so much for that. And it's great to hear about your journey, what's led you to our today, but you've framed the mission of Viome really well. So tell us about that mission. What are Viome trying to do? What problem are you tackling within the healthcare space, specifically focusing on chronic illness?
Yeah, Viome has a very ambitious mission, which is exactly what I said before, that we want to address chronic disease, the prevention of chronic disease, the early detection of chronic disease, the diagnosis, the therapeutic applications of all of the chronic diseases. There's just so many different chronic diseases that it's sometimes difficult to understand the scope of this kind of a mission. But at the root of many chronic diseases is a simple, at least a conceptually simple biological phenomenon that is inflammation. There's lots of different kinds of inflammation that happen in the body, and all of those inflammation types give rise to many different chronic diseases like metabolic diseases, type 2 diabetes and obesity and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. These are the most common ones. There are a number of autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, for example, or inflammatory bowel disease and so forth. There are a number of neurological issues and diseases like, Alzheimer's being a neurodegenerative disease that becomes pretty severe and a lot of people worry. But also very common things these days is depression and mood disorders and so on and so forth. Those are all also, we believe, are coming out of the inflammatory processes that are happening in your biology. And also, finally, we think about cancer, one of the biggest killers, right, on the planet. And that's a chronic disease. It happens because of a number of inflammatory processes that happen within the body in different places due to different kinds of exposure to environmental toxins. But the most important environmental factor that affects many of these chronic diseases is essentially the set of microbes that we live with. And we have a lot of microbes around us, but interestingly, there's a lot of microbes inside us. We call that the microbiome. So we understand in Viome the microbiome inside your body, as well as the human cells that are reacting and interacting with the microbiome. So we have this very unique view of disease, which is how does the human cell or set of cells interact with the microbial environment within the body and outside the body? And how does that give rise to a range of different chronic diseases? And how can we not just detect them, but actually cure them or maybe reverse some of these chronic diseases at the end of the day? And that's a pretty big agenda, but I think it's actually achievable given the kind of platform and the kind of methods and the kind of applications that we're building in Viome right now.
Which leads nicely then into your role and talking about the role that AI can play in tackling this problem. For people who are not familiar with discovery AI, what does that mean? What are you guys doing that makes you so unique in this space?
Yeah. So let's start with the point about the biology I was just talking about. How do you understand the biology of a human being? You have to have data for that, right? So in order to get data, the ideal way, of course, is if we can get samples of the different phenomena or processes that are going on in your body. So we end up trying to get as much data, as much samples as possible from the various body sites, if you will. We start with the most non-invasive parts of the body. For example, getting a saliva sample is a very simple thing. Anybody can do it without any problem. If you go a little bit further, you can get samples from the skin. You can get samples from the stool. The stool is a very important sample type for us because it captures what is going on in your gut, which is sometimes known as your second brain. And there's a lot of very important things that are going on in your intestinal system. And we can also get blood in a very simple using a finger prick mechanism, which can be done at home. We can get samples from your throat, your nose, your hair, all the different samples that we can get from individuals. We get those, we process them using some very advanced biological laboratory techniques. Our particular technique is called metatranscriptomics, which provides us with a very unique view of what is going on in your biology. And this is different from any other company, including 23andMe. 23andMe collects just a simple saliva swab and looks for these things called SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms. But we look for all the genes that are expressed in your biology. So when I say all the genes, literally everything. We are not biased towards one or another. We look for everything. And that gives us the fullest picture of the biology of any individual. And we have now been able to collect through our consumer business and through our more recent life science business, we've been able to more than 300,000 samples from so many different individuals around the world. We have people from more than 75 countries who are customers of Viome, who send us samples for a variety of different products that we have. And based on that, we collect this data. Now, that data that comes from our lab is the foundation for the AI that we do. As many of AI has many different subfields, many different tools and methods and what have you. One of the most important methods is machine learning. And machine learning is a more sort of a recently resurgent field of AI. There's also other things like knowledge representation, reasoning, etc., that we also do. But let's focus on machine learning because machine learning needs a lot of data. And the kind of data we have in Viome, the one that I just described, is unique, and it's also very extensive. It's our data set in Viome is the largest data set of gene expression data on the planet today. When you consider all the big companies, the big governments, the big academic institutions, everything put together, ours is the largest database of gene expression data. So with that, we can learn a lot of things. We can train these machine learning models. We can learn about the differences in the molecular patterns between people who have certain diseases and people who don't. We can look for early markers by going backwards, if you will, in the process and looking for what started a disease. We can look for what kinds of lifestyle changes might make a difference in preventing or reversing diseases. We look for all of these kinds of questions in our life science discovery methodology or discovery R&D engine that we've built in Viome. And that basically brings together all of the AI tools. You can talk about the various flavors of machine learning, supervised, unsupervised. You can talk about all the latest buzzwords. I go back into the basics. The foundations are still a very solid understanding of all of the STEM domains, right? STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics behind this problem that we're trying to solve. And that includes a number of techniques of machine learning that has recently become very popular, including neural networks and reinforcement learning and what have you. But I don't want to go too far into just the jargon and the buzzwords, because what I look for is a fundamental first principles understanding of this entire field that I'm talking about, including the science of the epidemiology, the bioinformatics and the computational biology, the technology, which includes the classic AI things, the knowledge representation, reasoning, data science, machine learning, the engineering part of it, which includes the cloud data, architecture, software engineering, best practices, what have you, and the mathematics of it, right? The solid mathematical and statistical background that is required to solve this really complicated problem, which I think we are making a really good headway with. So that's how I'd explain our approach to solving the big problem, where AI is a set of tools that we apply whatever part of that tool set we need to solve the ultimate problem, which is to address and deter chronic disease.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
You talked about what you look for, and on that you were referring to bringing in people to help you along this mission. You and I speak a lot about the growth of Viome and the various skill set needed to make this happen. Can you give us some insight into the current makeup of your broader team? How many different divisions, the different types of roles that are currently existing in the group, and then where you expect it to grow to as you guys continue to evolve and build this business?
Yeah, definitely. When we started Viome, we were a consumer first type of company because we wanted to get these kits from which we can collect samples in the hands of the maximum number of people on the planet as possible. We built a product called Gut Intelligence, and then we built another product called Health Intelligence, and now we have supplements. And then at that point, we realized that we have a very large platform and a database to start a brand new division, which we are calling the Health Science Division. And that division is a biopharma type of a division that is working with large pharma companies, other biotechnology companies. We are working with academia to collaborate on clinical studies and a variety of different validation studies that we're doing right now. So in that agenda, you can see that there's everything from classic software engineering of large cloud-based systems, engineering of the user experience for a consumer kind of a product, engineering of the backend that can scale on the cloud with very large data sets, with architectures that can be taken to literally millions of people on the planet, all the way to the biopharm world, where we look for people, like I said before, people with a background in the science, which includes the disease areas that we are going after. And we currently are going after gastrointestinal disease, we are going after neurological diseases, and we're going after metabolic and autoimmune. Those are the four areas that I want to mention here as major areas of disease that we're going after. But we are also looking for people who have experience with biostatistics and epidemiology, computational biology, bioinformatics, right? Those are all the areas that we're interested in. And in the technology areas, we're looking for all the classic AI skills, data science skills, machine learning skills, knowledge engineering, representation, knowledge reasoning types of skills. And finally, we are also looking for people who are very much in the applied math areas, statistics and a number of different fields in mathematics that apply to these kinds of problems are very welcome to apply. Signal processing, it just comes to mind as another area that we may be interested in as well, because there's a lot of underlying math that applies to machine learning as well. So those are the kinds of skills and mindsets that I look for. But let me finish that by saying that at the end of the day, I'm looking for people who can go back to first principles and the foundations of all of these fields and help us solve these problems. I'm not looking for people who are just buzzword compliant, done a couple of little things and put a lot of words on their resumes, but people who really understand all of these fields that can help us answer the hard questions. And I'm, of course, looking for people who are collaborative, who are comfortable in a multidisciplinary environment. And the way I think about it is people who are T-shaped, right? They're very deep in at least one area, but they're able to broadly connect with many other areas and are able to collaborate with a lot of people. So that's the kind of people we are looking for. And why are we looking for those people now? It's because Viome is growing tremendously, right? We started as a consumer company, as I said. We expanded to this new division, the life science, health science division. And so we renamed our company to Viome Life Sciences. And from there, we are going into all of these disease areas where we are solving the problems with, prevention, diagnostics, prognostics, and therapeutics. And we are building a number of different applications, and we are collaborating with all of these parties in pharma and academia and so forth. So we are definitely growing a lot in our team as well to address all of these needs in these different projects. And so we are looking for people with that entire range of skills that I just talked about.
Super helpful, and I appreciate the level of detail there, because I think it's important just for our audience to know how many different types of opportunities there are going to be. Final question from me then, Guru. When you look at the work that you've been doing and you look at the mission ahead, you said this was very much a once in a lifetime opportunity. Looking ahead, what are you most excited about for the future of Viome?
Wow. Yeah, I would love to be in a future, even not distant future. I'm talking about in the next 2 to 5 years. I would love to be at a place where the power of gene expression, which is what we have made a bet on, is recognized by the entire health community, right? Which includes the doctors, the researchers, the pharma industry and so forth, but most of all by all of the people, the individuals on the planet, should be able to recognize that this new technology that we're bringing to bear, which is based on RNA, which is gene expression, not DNA, but RNA, which is the expression of the DNA based upon your lifestyle, your environment, and so forth. That is the key to unlocking the biological signals in your body for both health and disease. So I want to be in a place where we have demonstrated through a number of applications that this idea of understanding your gene expression to address this issue of chronic disease is recognized by everybody. And this happens through, of course, education, but it also happens through scientific breakthroughs. We made a couple of breakthroughs already. We, in fact, got a breakthrough designation by the FDA earlier this year for our cancer diagnostic. But I expect and hope that we will have a number of such breakthroughs in the next few years where they get published in the relevant scientific literature. They get covered by the media. They get in the hands of millions of people. And as a result of that, we are able to truly solve one of the biggest problems that we have right now, which is this whole thing about chronic disease. I really want to make a dent in that huge problem. And of course, if you go out 10 years, I do think that a company like Viome could be the largest force, if you will, in addressing this big problem that we've taken on, which for those of you looking at sort of financial terms, right, this is a $1 trillion opportunity, if you will. And so building this set of applications and set of solutions, if you will, for everybody is definitely get us in a very promising place for all of us, I think.
Absolutely. Guru, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I know in the intro we said this has been a long time coming, mainly because we wanted to get Viome's mission out there to our audience because it really is so amazing. Appreciate the level of detail. It sounds like it's rapidly growing with lots of opportunities for people to join. We wish you and everyone at Viome the best luck in achieving that mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JP. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.